Hey, hello, here we are. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. My name is Brian Perez. We are so pleased to have you listening today and watching as well on Facebook, including the Calvary Chapel Newport News, Virginia Facebook page, where Tony Clark is the senior pastor. Tony joins us today via Skype. How's it going, Tony?
Good.
Great.
Good.
And Bobby Conway's here as well on the Bobby Cam. He's the pastor of Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also the guy you see on the Christianity Still Makes Sense YouTube channel. What is new, Bobby Conway?
I guess not much.
The way you let out that big sigh, I'm like, oh man, something's really troubling Bobby. In which case, I was going to send Brian Broderson to the rescue because he's here too. He's the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. And how are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing great, and I'm really glad to be here to cheer Bobby up because that's part of my job description is keeping these guys encouraged.
Yes.
Bobby, I do want to say a quick word of encouragement. I saw a photo of your Sunday service, and man, it's great. Look at church is really growing. It looked exciting. It looked like, man, God's working.
Yeah, it is. It's a real it's just been such a special community, and the girls had a pajama party. The guys didn't, but the girls did, and we had a great turnout for them. And so, yeah, it was a good weekend. We had a soup, bring your own soup, kind of a fellowship Friday night. So we're just doing good community, and we just love the people so much. It actually, you start believing when you get disillusioned with ministry enough that, okay, can you possibly enjoy being around the same people for a long time? And it seems as if, yes, we are. So we're thankful.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, we had a great weekend here at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, with the women's ministry. We had a fantastic women's Christmas coffee, and our good friend Amy Ewing and her husband were here in town. So Cheryl and I spent pretty much the day and evening with them yesterday, and I took them to the airport this morning. But Bobby, you know Amy, she's just such an amazing woman, such a powerhouse theologian and apologist, and she's recently speaking at the U.S. Congress. She speaks frequently at the British Parliament, and just a wonderful, wonderful young woman. So we had a really great time just being.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, just chaperoning them around. Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever heard of a pajama party. That like Bobby said I don't know. That might be the start of something new. Is there going to be a pajama party at Calvary Chapel, Newport News, Virginia, or Costa Mesa? Not for the guys. Just,
Yeah. That wouldn't go too well, would it?
No, it wouldn't.
Well, the guys have their own versions of that,
Yes.
The robe party.
Yeah.
888-564-6173 is our telephone number today. We invite you to call us. Grab an open line, 888-564-6173. You can also send us your questions using Facebook Messenger or Instagram, or by filling out the form on the Pastor's Perspective page of our flagship radio station's website, KWVE.com. KWAVE.com. Go there, find the page, send in your question, and maybe we'll read it here on the radio. But the best way to get an answer is to call us when we're here live, like today, until 4 p.m. Pacific time at 888-564-6173. All right. So let's do a question that was sent in online. And here's one from Kathy and Paul, who want to know, where did the phrase devil's advocate come from? That is a very interesting question. Is it in the Bible? Where did that come from?
I mean, come on. You're the guy. You did the research.
I know.
Tell us where it came from. We're asking Brian Perez the question.
But you guys don't know the answer to this?
Oh, come on.
You mean to tell me I know more about this than you guys do?
You do.
And I just learned about it 2 hours ago. So no, I looked it up online, and it was because it's a very interesting question, and I guess it has its origins in the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And it was something that, let's see, let me try to narrow it down here. Before a saint was venerated, I think is the correct terminology, but before somebody was elevated to some other form of, whether sainthood or whatever, there'd be some guy who was called the Devil's Advocate, and he had some fancy Latin name or Italian name or something, title, I should say. And his job was to go and find out if this person was really all they said that, because when you think about it, it's not a bad idea. I mean, in a way, before you give somebody some lofty title like sainthood or something, it's like, well, let's go see if this person really was a saint, or, like in the Catholic Church where to be a saint, you have to have so many miracles attributed to you, or at least one. And so this Devil's Advocate would go out and try to figure out if, no, this could have happened naturally. It wasn't a miracle.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Dig up the dirt, any dirt out there on that person.
Yeah. We have lots of Devil's Advocates nowadays.
Yeah. Fascinating how these things, come into the vernacular, and we say these things, but we don't necessarily make the connection, where they actually came from, what they. When I was in Cape Cod back at the end of summer, they were walking us through this little mill that had been built back in the early 1600s, and there were all kinds of things that were connected to the mill that have come down to us in little sayings today. Like even the threshold. Talking about the threshold, we think of a threshold like it's it's the area between the rooms, or coming across a doorstep. Well, it was originally to hold the thresh, to hold the grain, from going out of the place to the outside. And there were a couple of other ones that were really. And unfortunately, I can't remember them right now, but they're like, oh my goodness, I would have never guessed that that's where that one came from. But fun sort of things.
Yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, for people who are like dates and stuff like I do, it was 1587 what Pope Sixtus V came up with that whole Devil's Advocate kind of thing. So
are you sure it wasn't Pope Fifthus the Sixth? You sure it was Pope Sixtus the Fifth? Man, what a tongue twister! Not Sixtus the Fifth, but Fifthus the Sixth.
Yeah, right. And you're right, Brian Perez. They had to have at least two miracles associated with them, and he would go out and say, no, that could have been done through natural means, or that could have happened through natural means. And so he would be like you said, the Devil's Advocate to come against someone who is in line to get sainthood. And so that term came up around that time period. So it's crazy stuff, how stuff just finds their way into our language and not knowing where it actually came from. So that was good research you did.
Yeah, my good research was just one article. For all I know, it's incorrect, but it seemed pretty legit. I don't know. There was one part of the article, too, that it said that Pope John Paul II modernized the canonization process and did away with the formal office of Devil's Advocate in 1983. This streamlined the process tremendously, as John Paul II canonized 5 times as many people as the rest of his 20th century predecessors. Yeah. So again, without the title, without the office of Devil's Advocate, he just went ahead and...
good for him. He didn't want to let the devil in, throwing around, slinging mud.
That's right. That's right.
Those precious saints.
All right. Give us a call, 888-564-6173. Kathy and Paul, thank you for sending in your question. We'll maybe get to more Facebook and online questions a little bit later, but right now we're going to go to the phones. Here is Janice calling in from San Diego, California. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective. Janice.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. Now, this may be a silly question, but it's sort of been on my mind lately. Wondering about overcrowding in heaven, because believers, through the centuries, just multiply, there's going to be so many. I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. Will heaven be overcrowded, possibly?
Won't there just be 144,000 people in heaven? Isn't that what? No, isn't that it? No, I'm joking.
Well, I think if you probably an easy way to get over that, any kind of a sense of that, would just be to get a picture, say like from the Hubble telescope or something, and get a picture of the Earth situated in the heavens, and think about how minute the Earth is in comparison to the heavens. And I think that would easily answer your question. And of course, the heavens that we're talking about, the stellar heavens, it's not like there are people, saints aren't living up in that realm. It's a whole nother realm that we go into. But nevertheless, the universe is so vast, it's incomprehensibly vast. So if it was just simply we're going to be relocated to another part of the universe, there would never, ever be any problem.
Bobby Conway?
Whatsoever.
Yeah, look at it like this, Janice. First off, that would, mean there would be a limitation on God's part. So all God would need to do is expand the space in order to create more room. But even given what Brian said, just to put this a little bit in perspective, think about the sun, which is a small to medium-sized star. It's 93 million miles away. Again, that's just a small to medium-sized star. So then you take the Earth that we live on, and the diameter of the Earth compared to the diameter of the sun, you could put 1.3, 1.4 million Earths inside the sun, which is a small to medium-sized star. And then there's been studies done, like when the population was at 6 billion, it's now at 8. There's so many stars in the universe at the time that this projection was given, that was 6 billion people. If you wanted to divide the stars up amongst the 6 billion people, each person would be handed 1 trillion stars. So space will not be a problem for God in heaven. Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you. He'll have a place for us.
Tony Clark.
Yeah, Revelation chapter 21 describes in verse 1, a new heaven and a new earth. And then it describes the new Jerusalem, where we will be dwelling in. And based upon the size of the new Jerusalem, it's been guesstimated that each person that goes to heaven would have, so many 1,000 square miles to themselves, so to speak, based upon the size of the New Jerusalem. And I think that, people fail to realize there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and that the new earth is going to be inhabited by those who make it through the 1,000-year millennial kingdom, and they will go into the new heaven or they go into the new earth in natural bodies. How would they be sustained? How would their eternal life be sustained? Revelation chapter 22 said they will partake of the tree of life, just like Adam was supposed to do before he sinned. And so there will be those in the New Jerusalem that will be a city that will hover over the new earth, based upon Revelation chapters 21 and 22. And so there is no problem for a overcrowding, because there will be some in the New Jerusalem. There will be some that will be on the new earth.
So we're going to get some good acreage. We're not used to that here in California. We're just so crowded together, everybody living in apartments. Why are they called apartments when they're all so close together? I've never understood that. But Janice, does this answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I do have one more in relation to this question. So if everything is so big and so vast, will we be like geographically near our loved ones in heaven?
What do you guys think? Tony?
Well, first of all, because we will be in our new bodies, we will have access to the new earth as well as the new Jerusalem. And I think that, everyone wants to be with loved ones. Everyone wants to be near loved ones. We will have access to everybody, in heaven. And so but the relationship that we have with husband and wives and all that will be so much more deeper, so much more real than we will ever know. So it's not like it's so vast that, maybe every trillion years we'll come across a loved one. No, not at all.
I haven't seen you in 500 billion years.
Yeah.
All right, Janice, thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Phone lines open until 4 p.m. Pacific time on this Tuesday, the 5th of 6th or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, here's Shelley in Santa Ana, California. Welcome to the program.
Hello, pastors. My question is, a friend of mine told me about Bible studies that's starting about Jesus' grandmothers. And through my growing up and experiences through the Bible, I've never really heard about that. So I'm wanting to know, what do you all think? But mainly, I'm just wanting to make sure that this is not some kind of religious Bible study.
Wow. Just when you think you've heard it all. Bobby Conway, have you heard of Jesus' grandmothers? What is this all about?
Yikes.
Oh, well, I've heard of, Bathsheba, Ruth, Tamar, Rahab, some of these women that you can kind of look back to Jesus' family tree, and maybe that's what it means, not necessarily the direct grandmother, but those that would go back. And so maybe they're just being creative in the way, hey, we're going to look at the lives of Jesus' grandmothers, and maybe they're thinking about, some of those in the family tree. I don't know.
That could be it, Brian.
That is a good thought, Bobby. I think maybe you're right. I think maybe they're just kind of putting a little bit of a clever twist on
Well, this is the same guy who came up with the pajama party idea, so of course he's going to come up with it.
No.
Well, I think that was Heather that came up. They both just come up with the ideas.
Yes.
So, Shelley, this is Brian.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that?
I think that sounds good. That is relevant.
Yeah. I mean, obviously nobody knows who the actual immediate mother of Mary was. So that would be the grandmother that Jesus had. And if you think of Joseph as his foster father or his adopted father, then you could think of Joseph's mother. But who were they? Nobody knows. We have no record of their anything about them. So if it was something where they were going to try to dive into discovering just, who were the actual literal grandmothers of Jesus, that would be a problem. But I think Bobby had a good guess on it there.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Tony Clark.
I was also wondering, do you think that there's anything to be cautious about?
No, not if it's what Bobby guessed it was. I think it's just going to be a Bible study on those. Matthew's gospel has those 4 women. Luke's genealogy, for example, doesn't have any women in it, but Matthew's gospel all of a sudden inserts Rahab and Ruth and Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And is that it? Is it just
Tamar.
3 or is it 4?
It's 4.
Tamar.
Tamar.
Yeah. So I couldn't imagine that it would be anything other than that.
Yep. It's got to be. Tony, what were you going to say?
For me, it just sounds a little weird. For me, immediately when I saw it, my red flags went up immediately.
Yes, we all saw it on Facebook and YouTube. The reaction, the look on your face was classic Tony Clark.
That's just weird to me. Out of all the stuff in the Bible to talk about, to try to emphasize Jesus' grandmothers, okay, and then if you find them out, what's the point? Okay, what's the purpose? Okay,
Yeah.
If it's what Bobby said, we're going to study the 4 women in Matthew 4. Okay, that's fine. That's okay, but it just sounds just odd to me. because there's a lot of odd stuff out there, and it just sounded odd. Well,
thus the title. It's like, hey, that sounds weird. I better go check that out. It's a promotional
marketing.
Yeah, it's a
marketing ploy or something. Bobby, any other thoughts or?
No, that's good. Yeah, thanks.
All right, Shelley, thank you for calling us today here on Pastor's Perspective. And now we'll talk to Bernie in Yucaipa, who says, I love Tony Clark. Hi there, Bernie. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I've been listening for 35 years.
Wow.
Way back when Chuck Smith was, and Don Stewart.
That's a long time.
I want to give a compliment first, then the question. The compliment is to Tony Clark. I know you call Bobby the great doctor, but Tony, you are the great shepherd with a lot of wisdom. And I enjoy
God bless you.
Every Tuesday. And I don't think of tacos.
God bless you. Yeah. Awesome. Me in the same sentence with tacos. That's a good thing, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true. TNT, yeah. But anyway, the question, my sister-in-law, she lives back east, and she's into this new thing, reflexology, which is, I heard it's okay. It's pressure points behind the ears, the hands, and the feet. But there's another thing that she mentioned, and I never heard of it. It's called Tokay. Tokay, and I asked Alexa about Tokay, and they say it's a energy healing from Japan. And I wanted to know if you guys ever heard of anything, and what's the story on this? Is it, she shouldn't be going there? I don't know if she knows the Lord or not.
So is it Reiki? Is that what you're asking about?
I thought it was instead of reggae music, it's I thought it was Tokay, but maybe I'm saying it wrong.
No, I don't know. I'm not up on all the latest energy healing.
Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing. So I think that's probably what it is.
That's it. You're right, Brian.
And of course, we would think that this is not a good thing. There would be some mystical Eastern philosophical ideas and so forth behind it. So, and I would personally doubt that there's actually any real healing taking place there. But I think these are the kinds of things that, as Christians, we want to not engage with.
Okay, Bernie, thank you for calling us today. And if you guys have questions about Reiki, don't lose our number. It's 888-564-6173. That was bad.
It's really fortunate that we do have a baby boomer audience, because otherwise nobody would know what in the world.
Yes.
You go off into these little things. People would be like, what is that guy talking about?
But we want the younger people listening, so we don't want to turn them off with these obscure quotes either.
Obscure Steely Dan references.
Yes. Although some of the younger people do wear all the T-shirts of all these bands, and most of them even know who they are. Yeah.
But they wear the T-shirt.
It's like, name 3 songs by that band on your shirt. All right. 888-564-6173 is our number. Give us a call.
I don't even think that was Steely Dan. I think I made a wrong reference.
I think it was. It was still. Okay, we just got confirmation. Michael in Montclair, listening on the K-Wave app. Thank you for downloading the app, and thank you for listening today. Thank you for calling in. What's up?
Hi. Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. I just want to know what's the why mankind is evil, too evil, and other than the proverbial sin, I believe we do have to sin, but why are some people more evil than other people?
Bobby.
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for calling. So, Bobby, we're all evil, but why are some more evil than others? What do you say?
Well, pride is the root of all evil, and that basically is just the will exerting itself over and above God's ways. So it's basically just usurping God's command. So ultimately, you can trace our sin back to pride, because what takes place with our sin is it's us taking matters into our own hand. And some people do that more frequently than others. And as a result, that produces more evil in their life. And so God builds us with a conscience, Romans 2:14-15. He puts his moral law on our heart. And so we're able to kind of respond to that because it pings and gives us an awareness of, do that, don't do that. But what can happen is we can anesthetize our conscience. And kind of like when I was going to Chico State, Northern California, there was a set of train tracks, 10 yards behind my room. And, for the first week or so, it was a nightmare trying to get to sleep. But eventually I could sleep through the sound. Similarly, that's what happens. I think about taking my son's friend home when he was younger, and the smell of a skunk just infused the vehicle we were driving in. And I remember the young man saying, I like the smell of skunks. I used to hate the smell of skunks, but I've smelt them so much that now I like the smell of them. And, there's something about evil that works that way where, things that we, didn't think, that we didn't think we could ever do, we just start inching our way toward it. And then before you know it, we're rationalizing it. It's like the person who went to the psychologist and, was struggling with guilt. And, the psychologist said, do you want me to give you, do you want me to help you to deal with your guilt? Like, do you want to get rid of it? No, I just want you to give me a pill so I don't have to feel it. In other words, I want to keep doing the same action. I just don't want the guilt that comes along with it. All that to say, when we think about our human heart, we have to keep it tenderized to the Lord. We have to keep our conscience tenderized to the Lord. Otherwise, it'll grow dark. And that's why you have people who are more evil than others. But the funny thing about it is people don't tend to call their evil evil. Like take Machiavelli in The Prince. Holding on to power is the most important thing. And we can see in our culture right now, or think of the Lord of the Rings, how power corrupts, how evil gets just so dark. And, in Machiavelli's The Prince, he gives advice to the leader saying, hey, check this out. You can lie to the people through your teeth. It doesn't really matter. Your job is to hold on to power, so it doesn't matter what you say. You can make them think whatever. So you can lie and tell them that you mean well, you're doing good, even though your intent is to hold on to power. And so you see that in politics today where you're going, what's going on here? Why are people speaking this one language, but their life saying another? Well, they're just telling you what you want to hear so that they can hold on to their power because evil lurks in their heart. And so we can understand the different shades and the different ways evil works. I remember reading Mein Kampf and being blown away by how ethical Hitler saw himself. He believed in his vision so much. So what can happen is we don't know how to cope with our guilt, so we justify our evil as a good thing in order to feel better about our guilt. And so you can see this in particular with some of the great power figures of our day.
Tony Clark?
Yeah, there's a term in theological circles called the depravity of man. We're totally depraved as humans. Sin has corrupted us from Genesis 3 on. Sin has corrupted us. And then the Bible says in Jeremiah 17:9 that the heart is desperately wicked, or as another translation says, the heart is incurably sick. Who can know it? And so, just like the great doctor said about we can take our conscience and we can sear it, like you leave an iron on a piece of fabric and you pull it out and that fabric is damaged in that area, and we can do our conscience like that. And so there's more I can say, but the music is going on in the background.
Yes, that evil music is on, so now we have to take a break. But we'll be back with more questions, your questions. 888-564-6173 is the number. Michael's question, everyone's evil, but why are some people more evil than others? We'll hear what else Tony has to say, and we'll find out about Brian Broderson, too. I mean, we'll find out what Brian has to say. That didn't come out right in light of the topic of the conversation here. 888-564-6173 is our number. Give us a call. We've got 30 minutes left. 888-564-6173. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . we continue? We shall. This is Pastor's Perspective. I'm Brian Perez. We've got about 25 minutes left on the program, and we would love to chat with you at 888-564-6173. Brian Broderson, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark are here to answer your questions. Again, the number is 888-564-6173. So on this topic of evil that Michael called about, Tony, the music started when you were mid-thought, so go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, conscious, the great doctor mentioned something about the conscious. The conscious comes from a Latin word. It's a combo Latin word, con, which means with, and science, which means knowledge. So we sin with the knowledge that something is right or wrong. And so we can shut that voice up to the point where that voice doesn't convict us in that area anymore. And that's when the Bible talks about our conscience being seared with a hot iron. So there are people who have shut the voice of conscience up to the point where they can just do some heinous, diabolical things. And there are others who have not shut the voice of the conscience up, and they won't cross certain lines or so. And this is why some people seem to do some diabolical things, some very heinous acts, and others don't.
Pastor Brian.
Yes. Well, these guys, of course, gave great answers, but I just wanted to refer us to Ephesians chapter 4. And I think here Paul really does kind of hit the nail on the head in answering this question. He's speaking to believers, of course, and he's telling them not to behave the way the rest of the unbelievers behave and the way they used to behave. Mm-hmm. And he refers to them as their thinking is futile. He says in 4:18, they are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the hardening of their heart. And then verse 19 is really kind of nails it. Having lost all sensitivity. Tony was talking about conscience seared. This is it right here. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of evil, and they are full of greed. So it's a process. People, like Bobby said originally, people begin to disobey. They begin to resist God, and their heart hardens each time they do that. And then they begin to delve into darker and darker things. And some people go unchecked until they're so hardened in their hearts. I mean, I think today, you look around today and there are some horrific evils happening in society. And there are all kinds of people who just can't see it as evil. Oh, that's not evil. I mean, you guys probably heard today, they've got the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn State, and they're before Congress. They're having to answer questions on these so-called pro-Palestinian protests that are going on campus, where these students on campus are calling for Jewish genocide. They're calling for, the Jewish people. They're promoting, they're applauding Hitler, all kinds of crazy things. And so they're asking these presidents of these universities about this, and like, is this wrong? I mean, what are you doing? How are you allowing this? None of them could say it was actually wrong.
Wow.
So, if you misgendered somebody on campus, those three presidents would make sure you were either put through some kind of counseling, or you were expelled from school, or you were cast into prison. Yeah. But if you want to murder a whole people group, we don't. We can't really say whether that's right or wrong. That's kind of a hardness and a blindness that we're talking about, where sin can lead you to. And then the next step, we all, if we know anything about the things that happened with the Nazis, And the German people were complicit because, of course, they allowed so much of this to go on. But prior to this, nobody would have ever imagined that a people as well-educated, as highly cultured, as, just kind of living in the peak of what civilization would have been at the time, could have done the utterly atrocious things that the Nazis did and that the German people, many of them were complicit in. But they did it.
Bobby.
And they'll do it again. And we just saw on October 7th, we saw Hamas do it and gleefully do it. And now we have people looking on and saying, well, it's resistance. It's all fair in love and war, basically. There's nothing wrong with what they did. That's scary.
Bobby?
Yeah. It's really scary. I mean, you think about James Carville calling Mike Johnson and saying, he's worse than Hamas, more dangerous than Hamas. And you're thinking, what a guy that's going to promote being faithful to a spouse. But I mean, that's calling good evil and evil good.
Yeah.
And this is where we are. And so there's the individual conscience, but there's also this collective conscience that you're seeing in our culture. And the collective conscience is growing really, really dark and evil. And that's that begins to get anesthetized through media, through universities, through, these large corporations. And unfortunately, the power resides much in the hands of those that would deny, objective right and wrong in the sense of what we've historically believed was right and wrong. So now it's about power and pulling down other power structures that they perceive in order to create their power structures. And those power structures will do whatever. It'll use lying. It'll make obsessions out of sexuality. And so again, it's just, we are calling evil good and good evil. And it's ironic because this makes sharing the gospel really difficult. When you try to go out and share the gospel and talk about getting rescued from sin, well, now it's the church that needs to be rescued. It's Mike Johnson that's evil. He's the one that needs to be saved. And so now we've got a predicament on our hands where Satan has just been so cunning in this time. It's unbelievable.
Tony?
Yeah. Satan has been running amok with not only anti-Semitism, but with the extermination of the Jewish people ever since Genesis 3:15, when he was told the seed of the woman was going to crush his head. And then he tried to put a genetic virus into the human race to keep the seed of the woman from coming. And then, from the time of Moses to try to exterminate all the male people from the time of male Jews, from the time of Haman, from the time of Hitler. It's not that, let's just kill a few people. No, let's exterminate. So Satan tried to keep the Messiah from coming the first time. He's still trying to destroy the Jewish race to try to keep Jesus coming the second time. So we have a clear satanic thing that Satan, he's not even trying to hide anymore. He's not trying to hide as a guy with a red goatee and a pitchfork sitting on the throne. No, he's coming right out just saying, look, this is who I am. This is my agenda. I want to exterminate the Jewish race.
Great conversation today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173, 888-564-6173. We've got a few minutes left if you've got a question for us for Brian Broderson, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark, 888-564-6173. Here is JoJo calling in from Riverside, California, listening on the K-Wave app. Thank you for downloading the app, and how can we help you?
Hi, pastors. Thank you for taking my call. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, Brian Perez can hear you very well. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I wanted to call and get your perspective on orbs, or what people call spiritual orbs. I had never heard of it before. My husband mentioned it to me about a week ago. 2 weeks ago, I had to make a tough decision of, excuse me, I don't want to get emotional, euthanizing my kitty of 15 years. And we went ahead and we had to put him down, and we had him cremated. And 5 days later, 6 days later, I had to go pick up his ashes. And so we went ahead, we picked up his ashes, brought him home. Mind you, I've been crying every day throughout the day excessively. And later on that evening, it started to get dark. And typically, I won't look on my Ring cameras to see if the house is super dark, because I typically will go and just turn lights on. But my husband and I were in one of our bedrooms, and I told him, I said, I think it's time for us to turn on lights. I said, look, it's dark in the living room. And when I turned on one of the Ring cameras to show him how dark it was, I saw two balls of, they were about a little bigger than a baseball of light. It's like was a ball of white light. One was a little more white than the other. The other one was a little more transparent, but they were floating around my living room. And my husband said, those are orbs. I never knew what orbs were, pastors, but he said those were orbs, and we were watching them for a minute. And my husband said, let's go over there. So we didn't turn any lights on. We start walking down the hall. And mind you, I'm still looking at it on the video on my phone, and my husband's walking ahead. And as soon as he turned the corner to go into the living room, the orb disappeared. Now, upon looking at it, he got an infrared light. He was looking around. Could it be webs? Could it, we don't have webs, but he was dumbfounded. There was no AC on. There was no heater on, but no windows open. And it was in the night, and it was pitch dark in there, and they were floating around the living room. Mm-hmm. Well, I did keep the video. I still have the video. My husband kept replaying it back. And when you zoom in on it, pastors, you can literally see four little feet of something running around the ground with the orbs attached to it. Now, mind you, it was a big orb, and the light got smaller and smaller and smaller as it got down to the bottom of the ground.
Wow. Bobby Conway, we'll start with you on this one. What do you say?
Well, simply put, orbs are just, electromagnetic energy fields. And in a sense, orb shapes that you're seeing on photos, these are caused by particles. So specks of dust or that might show up with a light reflection. So I wouldn't read too much into that. That's not to say that there can't be things sometimes that God can use to comfort us. But I wouldn't see things that have left this earth, be it animals or humans, showing up, in the appearance of electromagnetic energy. That can be accounted for as particles. So all that to say, could that be a sense of comfort that God can use in our lives at times, that he's with us, perhaps, but we want to be careful that we don't go build out a theology on this, because in the Bible, we're not going to see that, like, for example, when we pass away, to be absent from the bodies, to be present with the Lord, not in the electromagnetic energy field, appearing as, an object or what have you. So that gets tough, because when we experience or see something that is powerful to us, then we have to think, okay, well, is that going to become the voice that I listen to more than what we can see in God's word? And we would have a really hard time building out a doctrine for that. And scientifically, now New Agers would have no problem. They would see orbs as angels and everything else. But I would say I do think there's a scientific explanation for that.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm real careful about stuff like this. And because what takes it from the particles and the light is that she said that she saw 4 little feet. And so there's some connection between the death of her precious kitty and this orb with 4 little feet. And I think that's the connection she's trying to make. And I just don't, dealing with the paranormal and all that kind of stuff and knowing how active the spiritual realm is, I'm just real careful about diving into that. And just like the great doctor said, making too much of that sort of thing. Could it be some emotion behind the precious cat being gone and seeing little feet? I don't know. I wouldn't put any stock in it. I wouldn't be saving videos, and I just wouldn't. Not at all. I go around my house praying God's presence and all that kind of stuff. I just don't fool with that kind of stuff.
Jojo, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective at 888-564-6173. Let's go to Murrieta now. Here is Aaliyah. You are on with Brian Broderson, Bobby Conway, and Tony Clark. Hi, Aaliyah.
Hi.
What's your question for us today? Go ahead.
I was just wondering when were dinosaurs created, like before or after Adam and Eve?
Okay.
All of the land animals were created just before the creation of Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve are the pinnacle of creation. They're created alone in the image of God. But all of the other creatures, the land animals, are created on the 6th day of creation, just like the man and the woman.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for calling us at 888-564-6173. Call again soon. 888-564-6173. Got a follow-up question here from Robin in Oceanside. Hi there, Robin. Thanks for calling us today.
Thank you, Pastor. So I've been listening to the discussions for the last 2 days, and I would like your perspective. Yesterday, you had a man call in who was a Israel Jew, I believe, who believes in Jesus Christ, and he was asking about citizenship in Israel. And you, and correct me if I'm wrong, had stated that if you believe in Jesus Christ, you can't become a citizen of Israel. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. We said that in some cases that does become an obstacle for Jewish people to gain their citizenship. It's not impossible.
May I ask?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
May I ask why, though?
Why is that?
The reason why I'm asking is because it sounded like you couldn't become a citizen if you were a Jew who believed in Jesus Christ, but these are God's chosen people. And so how does that work if you can't be, so that's what I needed an explanation. And then I was listening to the discussion today about,
So the way it works, of course, is the Israeli government and the vast majority of Israelis, Jewish people living in Israel today, are unbelievers in the sense that they do not, many of them don't believe in God, period, but they do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And for them, in their mind, any Jew who believes Jesus is a Messiah is a traitor and no longer Jewish. And they also know that people who believe in Jesus have a conviction about sharing their faith and spreading the gospel and seeing other people come to know the Lord. So for them to allow a person who believes in Jesus, who is Jewish, to become a citizen, it becomes a threat. And this threat is really more from the religious community than from the secular community, believe it or not. So the religious leaders in Israel today, they're the ones who work extra hard to try to prevent Jewish believers in Jesus from gaining their citizenship. I have friends who have been in that battle with the government, and in one case, after many years, finally succeeded. And I have another friend who went through the same process. It wasn't nearly as hostile as it was for the others. So it's not every case, but it can happen, and it frequently does happen. And as I was the one who was talking about this largely the other day, it really depends on who's in power governmentally. So the irony, here's the irony from our side of things. Generally here in Christians, we're for the right, not the left. So, but in Israel, and this is where you see there are extreme positions. So in Israel, you have extreme right, and it's the extreme right who oppose the citizenship for Jewish believers in Jesus. The left, they couldn't care less. It's like, yeah, come on in. Who cares? We don't care. It's not a big deal for them. So that's what I said, and hopefully that explains it a little bit better if you missed the first explanation.
Yeah. Tony or Bobby, did you have anything to add?
No, that was insightful, Brian.
All right.
Yeah.
Robin?
Hello?
Did that answer your question?
No, well, it did. Thank you very much. That's exactly what I heard, but then and forgive me for not being biblically experienced, but I am about your guys' age, and so as soon as and me and
these guys are a lot older than me, though. We got Robin. Just want to be clear on that.
What I'm saying, what does that do for us in how we're supposed to defend God's people, Israel?
Well, we're not called to defend God's people. I think we're just simply called to acknowledge that the Jewish people are historically the people of God. The Messiah came through them. Jesus is, in his human nature, he is a Jew. So we want to acknowledge that, and we want to honor that. But at the same time, we have to recognize that Israel, since the rejection of the Messiah, they have lived outside of their covenant relationship with God. They've been set aside, and God has done his work among the nations. Jewish people can come and be part of God's kingdom, but they come like everybody else. They come through the Messiah. They have no special access to God apart from him. So sometimes I think even as Christians and even as pastors, sometimes we can create a little bit of confusion by not sometimes clarifying what we mean. But when we say that they are the chosen people, historically they are the chosen people. God chose them in history. He will choose them again. But the present time, during the time of the church, he has set them aside. And so in a sense, they're not in the covenant relationship with him today that they previously were in, because they broke the covenant and they failed to enter into the new covenant. But in the future, they will be brought back in.
Tony, 45 seconds.
Yeah, Romans 11:5 said that there's a remnant that's going to be saved according to grace. And so even within their unbelief, God will save a remnant of the Jews. And then, like Pastor Brian said, Romans 11:25-27, there's going to be a day that all Israel will be saved. But as of right now, it sounds like jumbo shrimp or oxymoron. There are those who are Jews who are atheists, and then there are some who are religious. And the ones who are religious, like Pastor Brian said, these are the ones who are keeping the Messianic Jews from becoming citizens in fear that they will spread that Jesus to the rest of the Jewish people.
Robin, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. We are out of time. If we didn't get to your call today, please call us back tomorrow. We're going to be here between 3 and 4 p.m. Pacific time, and we would love to chat with you then. For Brian Broderson, Tony Clark, and the much younger Bobby Conway, I'm Brian Perez. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening today. And Pastor's Perspective was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.